Willkommen bei Heist, Ihr Partner für Zertifizierungserfolg. Wir bieten umfassende Lernmaterialien, online und offline, und begleiten Sie Schritt für Schritt. Von PDF-Leitfäden bis zu praxisnahen Übungssätzen. Alle wichtigen Fragen für Ihre Zertifizierung sind abgedeckt. Sie haben jederzeit die richtigen Ressourcen griffbereit. Laden Sie PDFs herunter. Machen Sie Tests und nutzen Sie unser Expertenteam. Mit interaktiver Online-Praxis können Sie sich überall und jederzeit prüfen. Unsere PDFs sind prüfungsbereit, sorgfältig zusammengestellt und bleiben stets aktuell. Tausende Lernende haben sich bereits erfolgreich zertifizieren lassen und vertrauen auf unsere Qualität. Zertifizierte Fachkräfte stehen bereit, um Ihre Fragen zu beantworten. Starten Sie heute und geben Sie Ihrer Vorbereitung den entscheidenden Vorteil mit Heist. Besuchen Sie xmheist.com. Heist. Ihr Weg zum Erfolg beginnt hier.
Question 1. A generative AI engineer has created a RAG application to look up answers to questions about a series of fantasy novels that are being asked on the author's web forum. The fantasy novel texts are chunked and embedded into a vector store with metadata. Page number, chapter number, book title, retrieved with the user's query, and provided to an LLM for response generation. The generative AI engineer used their intuition to pick the chunking strategy and associated configurations, but now wants to more methodically choose the best values. Which two strategies should the generative AI engineer take to optimize their chunking strategy and parameters? Choose 2. Option A. Change embedding models and compare performance. Option B. Add a classifier for user queries that predicts which book will best contain the answer. Use this to filter retrieval. Option C. Choose an appropriate evaluation metric, such as recall or NDCG, and experiment with changes in the chunking strategy, such as splitting chunks by paragraphs or chapters. Choose the strategy that gives the best performance metric. Option D. Pass known questions and best answers to an LLM and instruct the LLM to provide the best token count. Use a summary statistic, mean, median, etc. of the best token counts to choose chunk size. Option E. Create an LLM as a judge metric to evaluate how well previous questions are answered by the most appropriate chunk. Optimize the chunking parameters based upon the values of the metric. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is Option C. Choose an appropriate evaluation metric, such as recall or NDCG, and experiment with changes in the chunking strategy, such as splitting chunks by paragraphs or chapters. Choose the strategy that gives the best performance metric. Option E. Create an LLM as a judge metric to evaluate how well previous questions are answered by the most appropriate chunk. Optimize the chunking parameters based upon the values of the metric. Question 2. A generative AI engineer is designing a RAG application for answering user questions on technical regulations as they learn a new sport. What are the steps needed to build this RAG application and deploy it? Option A. Serving. Option B. Serving. Option C. Ingest documents from a source to index the documents and save to vector search to evaluate model to deploy it using model. Serving. Option D. Serving. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is Option B. Serving. Question 3. A generative AI engineer just deployed an LLM application at a digital marketing company that assists with answering customer service inquiries. Which metric should they monitor for their customer service LLM application in production? Option A. Number of customer inquiries processed per unit of time. Option B. Energy usage per query. Option C. Final perplexity scores for the training of the model. Option D. Hugging Face leaderboard values for the base LLM. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option A. Number of customer inquiries processed per unit of time. Question 4. A generative AI engineer is building a generative AI system that suggests the best matched employee team member to newly scoped projects. The team member is selected from a very large team. The match should be based upon project date availability and how well their employee profile matches the project scope. Both the employee profile and project scope are unstructured text. How should the generative AI engineer architect their system? Option A. Create a tool for finding available team members given project dates. Embed all project scopes into a vector store. Perform a retrieval using team member profiles to find the best team member. Option B. Create a tool for finding team member availability given project dates. And another tool that uses an LLM to extract keywords from project scopes. Iterate through available team members' profiles and perform keyword matching to find the best available team member. Option C. Create a tool to find available team members given project dates. Create a second tool that can calculate a similarity score for a combination of team member profile and the project scope. Iterate through the team members and rank by best score to select a team member. Option D. Create a tool for finding available team members given project dates. Embed team profiles into a vector store and use the project scope and filtering to perform retrieval to find the available best matched team members. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option D. Create a tool for finding available team members given project dates. Embed team profiles into a vector store and use the project scope and filtering to perform retrieval to find the available best matched team members. Question 5. A generative AI engineer is designing an LLM-powered live sports commentary platform. The platform provides real-time updates and LLM-generated analyses for any users who would like to have live summaries, rather than reading a series of potentially outdated news articles. Which tool below will give the platform access to real-time data for generating game analyses based on the latest game scores? Option A. Databricks IQ. Option B. Foundation Model APIS. Option C. Feature Serving. Option D. AutoML. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option C. Feature Serving. Question 6. A generative AI engineer has a provisioned throughput model serving endpoint as part of a RAG application and would like to monitor the serving endpoint's incoming requests and outgoing responses. The current approach is to include a microservice in between the endpoint and the user interface to write logs to a remote server. Which Databricks feature should they use instead, which will perform the same task? Option A. Vector search. Option B. Lakeview. Option C. DBSQL. Option D. Inference tables. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option D. Inference tables. Question 7. A generative AI engineer is tasked with improving the RAG quality by addressing its inflammatory outputs. Which action would be most effective in mitigating the problem of offensive text outputs? Option A. Increase the frequency of upstream data updates. Option B. Inform the user of the expected RAG behavior. Option C. Restrict access to the data sources to a limited number of users. Option D. Curate upstream data properly, that includes manual review before it is fed into the RAG system. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option D. Curate upstream data properly, that includes manual review before it is fed into the RAG system. Question 8. A generative AI engineer is creating an LLM-based application. The documents for its retrieval have been chunked to a maximum of 512 tokens each. The generative AI engineer knows that cost and latency are more important than quality for this application. They have several context length levels to choose from. Which will fulfill their need? Option A. Context length 514. Smallest model is 0. 44 GB and embedding dimension 768. Option B. Context length 2048. Smallest model is 11 GB and embedding dimension 2560. Option C. Context length 32768. Smallest model is 14 GB and embedding dimension 4096. Option D. Context length 512. Smallest model is 0. 13 GB and embedding dimension 384. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option D. Context length 512. Smallest model is 0. 13 GB and embedding dimension 384. Question 9. A small and cost-conscious startup in the cancer research field wants to build a RAG application using foundation model. APIS. Which strategy would allow the startup to build a good quality RAG application while being cost-conscious and able to cater to customer needs? Option A. Limit the number of relevant documents available for the RAG application to retrieve from. Option B. Pick a smaller LLM that is domain-specific. Option C. Limit the number of queries a customer can send per day. Option D. Use the largest LLM possible because that gives the best performance for any general queries. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option B. Pick a smaller LLM that is domain-specific. Question 10. A generative AI engineer is responsible for developing a chatbot to enable their company's internal helpdesk call center team to more quickly find related tickets and provide resolution. While creating the GenAI application work breakdown tasks for this project, they realize they need to start planning which data sources, either Unity catalog volume or Delta table, they could choose for this application. They have collected several candidate data sources for consideration. Call representative history. A Delta table with primary keys representative id. Call id. This table is maintained to calculate representatives call resolution from fields call duration and call start time. Transcript volume. A Unity catalog volume of all recordings is a asterisk WAV files, but also a text transcript as asterisk text files. Call cust history. A Delta table with primary keys customer id. Cal1 id. This table is maintained to calculate how much internal customers use the helpdesk to make sure that the chargeback model is consistent with actual service use. Call detail. A Delta table that includes a snapshot of all call details updated hourly. It includes root cause and resolution fields, but those fields may be empty for calls that are still active. Maintenance schedule. A Delta table that includes a listing of both helpdesk application outages as well as planned upcoming maintenance downtimes. They need sources that could add context to best identify ticket root cause and resolution. Which two sources do that? Choose two. Option A. Call cust history. Option B. Maintenance schedule. Option C. Call representative history. Option D. Call detail. Option E. Transcript volume. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option D. Call detail. Option E, transcript volume. Question 11. What is the most suitable library for building a multi-step LLM-based workflow? Option A, Pandas. Option B, TensorFlow. Option C, PSpark. Option D, LangChain. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option D, LangChain. Question 12. When developing an LLM application, it's crucial to ensure that the data used for training the model complies with licensing requirements to avoid legal risks. Which action is not appropriate to avoid legal risks? Option A. Reach out to the data curators directly before you have started using the trained model to let them know. Option B. Use any available data you personally created which is completely original and you can decide what license to use. Option C. Only use data explicitly labeled with an open license and ensure the license terms are followed. Option D. Reach out to the data curators directly after you have started using the trained model to let them know. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option D. Reach out to the data curators directly after you have started using the trained model to let them know. Question 13. A generative AI engineer is creating an LLM system that will retrieve news articles from the year 1918 and relate it to a user's query and summarize them. The engineer has noticed that the summaries are generated well but often also include an explanation of how the summary was generated, which is undesirable. Which change could the generative AI engineer perform to mitigate this issue? Option A. Split the LLM output by newline characters to truncate away the summarization explanation. Option B. Tune the chunk size of news articles or experiment with different embedding models. Option C. Revisit their document ingestion logic, ensuring that the news articles are being ingested properly. Option D. Provide few short examples of desired output format to the system and/or user prompt. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option D. Provide few short examples of desired output format to the system and/or user prompt. Question 14. A generative AI engineer has developed an LLM application to answer questions about internal company policies. The generative AI engineer must ensure that the application doesn't hallucinate or leak confidential data. Which approach should not be used to mitigate hallucination or confidential data leakage? Option A. Add guardrails to filter outputs from the LLM before it is shown to the user. Option B. Fine-tune the model on your data, hoping it will learn what is appropriate and not. Option C. Limit the data available based on the user's access level. Option D. Use a strong system prompt to ensure the model aligns with your needs. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option B. Fine-tune the model on your data, hoping it will learn what is appropriate and not. Question 15. A generative AI engineer interfaces with an LLM with prompt response behavior that has been trained on customer calls inquiring about product availability. The LLM is designed to output, in stock, if the product is available, or only the term, out of stock, if not. Which prompt will work to allow the engineer to respond to call classification labels correctly? Option A. Respond with, in stock, if the customer asks for a product. Option B. You will be given a customer call transcript where the customer asks about product availability. The outputs are either, in stock, or, out of stock. Format the output in JSON. For example, call id. 123. Label. In stock. Option C. Respond with, out of stock, if the customer asks for a product. Option D. You will be given a customer call transcript where the customer inquires about product availability. Respond with, in stock, if the product is available, or, out of stock, if not. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option D. You will be given a customer call transcript where the customer inquires about product availability. Respond with, in stock, if the product is available, or, out of stock, if not. Question 16. A generative AI engineer is tasked with developing a RAG application that will help a small internal group of experts at their company answer specific questions, augmented by an internal knowledge base. They want the best possible quality in the answers. And neither latency nor throughput is a huge concern given that the user group is small and they're willing to wait for the best answer. The topics are sensitive in nature and the data is highly confidential, and so, due to regulatory requirements, none of the information is allowed to be transmitted to third parties. Which model meets all the generative AI engineers' needs in this situation? Option A. DALL-E 1. 5B. Option B. OpenAI GPT-4. Option C. BGE Large. Option D. Llama 2 to 70B. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option D, Llama 2 to 70B. Question 17. A generative AI engineer would like an LLM to generate formatted JSON from emails. This will require parsing and extracting the following information: order ID, date, and sender email. Here's a sample email. They will need to write a prompt that will extract the relevant information in JSON format with the highest level of output accuracy. Which prompt will do that? Option A. You will receive customer emails and need to extract date, sender email, and order ID. You should return the date, sender email, and order ID information in JSON format. Option B. You will receive customer emails and need to extract date, sender email, and order ID. Return the extracted information in JSON format. Here's an example. Date: April 16, 2024 inches. Sender email, quote, email protected, quote, order ID, RE987D. Option C. You will receive customer emails and need to extract date, sender email, and order ID. Return the extracted information in a human-readable format. Option D. You will receive customer emails and need to extract date, sender email, and order I. Return the extracted information in JSON format. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option B. You will receive customer emails and need to extract date, sender email, and order ID. Return the extracted information in JSON format. Here's an example. Date: April 16, 2024 inches. Sender email, quote, email protected, quote, order ID, RE987D. Question 18. A generative AI engineer has been asked to build an LLM-based question answering application. The application should take into account new documents that are frequently published. The engineer wants to build this application with the least cost and least development effort and have it operate at the lowest cost possible. Which combination of chaining components and configuration meets these requirements? Option A. For the application, a prompt, a retriever, and an LLM are required. The retriever output is inserted into the prompt which is given to the LLM to generate answers. Option B. The LLM needs to be frequently with the new documents in order to provide most up-to-date answers. Option C. For the question answering application, prompt engineering and an LLM are required to generate answers. Option D. For the application a prompt, an agent and a fine-tuned LLM are required. The agent is used by the LLM to retrieve relevant content that is inserted into the prompt which is given to the LLM to generate answers. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option A. For the application a prompt, a retriever, and an LLM are required. The retriever output is inserted into the prompt which is given to the LLM to generate answers. Question 19. A generative AI engineer is creating an agent-based LLM system for their favorite monster truck team. The system can answer text-based questions about the monster truck team, look up event dates via an API call, or query tables on the team's latest standings. How could the generative AI engineer best design these capabilities into their system? Option A. Ingest PDF documents about the monster truck team into a vector store and query it in a RAG architecture. Option B. Write a system prompt for the agent listing available tools and bundle it into an agent system that runs a number of calls to solve a query. Option C. Instruct the LLM to respond with RAG, API, or table, depending on the query. Then use text parsing and conditional statements to resolve the query. Option D. Build a system prompt with all possible event dates and table information in the system prompt. Use a RAG architecture to look up generic text questions and otherwise leverage the information in the system prompt. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option A. Ingest PDF documents about the monster truck team into a vector store and query it in a RAG architecture. Question 20. A generative AI engineer has been asked to design an LLM-based application that accomplishes the following business objective. Answer employee HR questions using HR PDF documentation. Which set of high-level tasks should the generative AI engineer's system perform? Option A. Calculate average embeddings for each HR document. Compare embeddings to user query to find the best document. Pass the best document with the user query into an LLM with a large context window to generate a response to the employee. Option B. Use an LLM to summarize HR documentation. Provide summaries of documentation and user query into an LLM with a large context window to generate a response to the user. Option C. Create an interaction matrix of historical employee questions and HR documentation. Use ALS to factorize the matrix and create embeddings. Calculate the embeddings of new queries and use them to find the best HR documentation. Use an LLM to generate a response to the employee question based upon the documentation retrieved. Option D. Split HR documentation into chunks and embed into a vector store. Use the employee question to retrieve best matched chunks of documentation. And use the LLM to generate a response to the employee based upon the documentation retrieved. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option D. Split HR documentation into chunks and embed into a vector store. Use the employee question to retrieve best matched chunks of documentation. And use the LLM to generate a response to the employee based upon the documentation retrieved. Question 21. Generative AI engineer at an electronics company just deployed a RAG application for customers to ask questions about products that the company carries. However, they received feedback that the RAG response often returns information about an irrelevant product. What can the engineer do to improve the relevance of the RAG's response? Option A. Assess the quality of the retrieved context. Option B. Implement caching for frequently asked questions. Option C. Use a different LLM to improve the generated response. Option D. Use a different semantic similarity search algorithm. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is Option D. Use a different semantic similarity search algorithm. Question 22. A generative AI engineer is developing a chatbot designed to assist users with insurance-related queries. The chatbot is built on a large language model, LLM, and is conversational. However, to maintain the chatbot's focus and to comply with company policy, it must not provide responses to questions about politics. Instead, when presented with political inquiries, the chatbot should respond with a standard message. Sorry, I cannot answer that. I am a chatbot that can only answer questions around insurance. Which framework type should be implemented to solve this? Option A. Safety guardrail. Option B. Security guardrail. Option C. Contextual guardrail. Option D. Compliance guardrail. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is Option A. Safety guardrail. Question 23. A generative AI engineer is using the code below to test setting up a vector store. Assuming they intend to use Databricks managed embeddings with the default embedding model, what should be the next logical function call? Option A. VSC. Get index. Option B. VSC. Create delta sync index. Option C. VSC. Create direct access index. Option D. VSC. Similarity search. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is Option B. VSC. Create delta sync index. Question 24. A generative AI engineer is tasked with deploying an application that takes advantage of a custom MLflow piping model to return some interim results. How should they configure the endpoint to pass the secrets and credentials? Option A. Use Spark, Conference, Set. Option B. Pass variables using the Databricks feature store API. Option C. Add credentials using environment variables. Option D. Pass the secrets in plain text. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is Option C. Add credentials using environment variables. Question 25. A generative AI engineer wants to build an LLM-based solution to help a restaurant improve its online customer experience with bookings by automatically handling common customer inquiries. The goal of the solution is to minimize escalations to human intervention and phone calls while maintaining a personalized interaction. To design the solution, the generative AI engineer needs to define the input data to the LLM and the task it should perform. Which input-output pair will support their goal? Option A. Input. Online chat logs. Output. Group the chat logs by users, followed by summarizing each user's interactions. Option B. Input. Online chat logs. Output. Buttons that represent choices for booking details. Option C. Input. Customer reviews. Output. Classify review sentiment. Option D. Input. Online chat logs. Output. Cancellation options. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is Option B. Input. Online chat logs. Output. Buttons that represent choices for booking details. Question 26. What is an effective method to pre-process prompts using custom code before sending them to an LLM? Option A. Directly modify the LLM's internal architecture to include pre-processing steps. Option B. It is better not to introduce custom code to pre-process prompts as the LLM has not been trained with examples of the pre-processed prompts. Option C. Rather than pre-processing prompts, it's more effective to post-process the LLM outputs to align the outputs to desired outcomes. Option D. Write a ML flow Prüfung model that has a separate function to process the prompts. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option D. Write a ML flow Prüfung model that has a separate function to process the prompts. Question 27. A generative AI engineer is developing an LLM application that users can use to generate personalized birthday poems based on their names. Which technique would be most effective in safeguarding the application, given the potential for malicious user inputs? Option A. Implement a safety filter that detects any harmful inputs and ask the LLM to respond that it is unable to assist. Option B. Reduce the time that the users can interact with the LLM. Option C. Ask the LLM to remind the user that the input is malicious but continue the conversation with a user. Option D. Increase the amount of compute that powers the LLM to process input faster. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option A. Implement a safety filter that detects any harmful inputs and ask the LLM to respond that it is unable to assist. Question 28. Which indicator should be considered to evaluate the safety of the LLM outputs when qualitatively assessing LLM responses for a translation use case? Option A. The ability to generate responses in code. Option B. The similarity to the previous language. Option C. The latency of the response and the length of text generated. Option D. The accuracy and relevance of the responses. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option D. The accuracy and relevance of the responses. Question 29. A generative AI engineer is developing a patient-facing healthcare-focused chatbot. If the patient's question is not a medical emergency, the chatbot should solicit more information from the patient to pass to the doctor's office and suggest a few relevant pre-approved medical articles for reading. If the patient's question is urgent, direct the patient to calling their local emergency services. Given the following user input: I have been experiencing severe headaches and dizziness for the past 2 days. Which response is most appropriate for the chatbot to generate? Option A. Here are a few relevant articles for your browsing. Let me know if you have questions after reading them. Option B. Please call your local emergency services. Option C. Headaches can be tough. Hope you feel better soon. Option D. Please provide your age, recent activities, and any other symptoms you have noticed along with your headaches and dizziness. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option D. Please provide your age, recent activities, and any other symptoms you have noticed along with your headaches and dizziness. Question 30. After changing the response-generating LLM in a RAG pipeline from GPT-4 to a model with a shorter context length that the company self-hosts, the generative AI engineer is getting the following error. What 2 solutions should the generative AI engineer implement without changing the response-generating model? Choose 2. Option A. Use a smaller embedding model to generate embeddings. Option B. Reduce the maximum output tokens of the new model. Option C. Decrease the chunk size of embedded documents. Option D. Reduce the number of records retrieved from the vector database. Option E. Retrain the response generating model using Alibi. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is Option C. Decrease the chunk size of embedded documents. Option D. Reduce the number of records retrieved from the vector database. Question 31. A generative AI engineer is building a system which will answer questions on latest stock news articles, which will not help with ensuring the outputs are relevant to financial news. Option A. Implement a comprehensive guardrail framework that includes policies for content filters tailored to the finance sector. Option B. Increase the compute to improve processing speed of questions to allow greater relevancy analysis. Option C. Implement a profanity filter to screen out offensive language. Option D. Incorporate manual reviews to correct any problematic outputs prior to sending to the users. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is Option Undefined. Option B. Increase the compute to improve processing speed of questions to allow greater relevancy analysis. Question 32. A generative AI engineer is building a RAG application that answers questions about internal documents for the company Snowpen AI. The source documents may contain a significant amount of irrelevant content, such as advertisements, sports news, or entertainment news, or content about other companies. Which approach is advisable when building a RAG application to achieve this goal of filtering irrelevant information? Option A. Keep all articles because the RAG application needs to understand non-company content to avoid answering questions about them. Option B. Include in the system prompt that any information it sees will be about Snowpen AI, even if no data filtering is performed. Option C. Include in the system prompt that the application is not supposed to answer any questions unrelated to Snowpen AI. Option D. Consolidate all Snowpen AI related documents into a single chunk in the vector database. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is Option C. Include in the system prompt that the application is not supposed to answer any questions unrelated to Snowpen AI. Question 33. A generative AI engineer has successfully ingested unstructured documents and chunked them by document sections. They would like to store the chunks in a vector search index. The current format of the data frame has two columns. I. Original document file name. E. An array of text chunks for each document. Which is the most performant way to store this data frame? Option A. Split the data into train and test set. Create a unique identifier for each document. Then save to a delta table. Option B. Flatten the data frame to one chunk per row. Create a unique identifier for each row. And save to a delta table. Option C. First create a unique identifier for each document. Then save to a delta table. Option D. Store each chunk as an independent JSON file in Unity Catalog volume. For each JSON file, the key is the document section name and the value is the array of text chunks for that section. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is Option B. Flatten the data frame to one chunk per row. Create a unique identifier for each row. And save to a delta table. Question 34. A generative AI engineer has created a RAG application which can help employees retrieve answers from an internal knowledge base, such as Confluence Pages or Google Drive. The prototype application is now working with some positive feedback from internal company testers. Now the generative AI engineer wants to formally evaluate the system's performance and understand where to focus their efforts to further improve a system. How should the generative AI engineer evaluate the system? Option A. Use cosine similarity score to comprehensively evaluate the quality of the final generated answers. Option B. Curate a dataset that can test the retrieval and generation components of the system separately. Use MLflow's built-in evaluation metrics to perform the evaluation on the retrieval and generation components. Option C. Benchmark multiple LLMs with the same data and pick the best LLM for the job. Option D. Use an LLM as a judge to evaluate the quality of the final answers generated. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is Option B. Curate a dataset that can test the retrieval and generation components of the system separately. Use MLflow's built-in evaluation metrics to perform the evaluation on the retrieval and generation components. Question 35. A generative AI engineer has already trained an LLM on Databricks and it is now ready to be deployed. Which of the following steps correctly outlines the easiest process for deploying a model on Databricks? Option A. Log the model as a pickle object. Upload the object to Unity Catalog volume. Register it to Unity Catalog using MLflow. And start a serving endpoint. Option B. Log the model using MLflow during training. Directly register the model to Unity Catalog using the MLflow API. And start a serving endpoint. Option C. Save the model along with its dependencies in a local directory. Build the Docker image. And run the Docker container. Option D. Wrap the LLM's prediction function into a Flask application and serve using Gunacorn. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is Option B. Log the model using MLflow during training. Directly register the model to Unity Catalog using the MLflow API. And start a serving endpoint. Question 36. A generative AI engineer developed an LLM application using the provisioned Throughput Foundation model API. Now that the application is ready to be deployed, they realize their volume of requests are not sufficiently high enough to create their own provisioned throughput endpoint. They want to choose a strategy that ensures the best cost effectiveness for their application. What strategy should the generative AI engineer use? Option A. Switch to using external models instead. Option B. Deploy the model using pay-per-token throughput as it comes with cost guarantees. Option C. Change to a model with a fewer number of parameters in order to reduce hardware constraint issues. Option D. Throttle the incoming batch of requests manually to avoid rate limiting issues. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is Option B. Deploy the model using pay-per-token throughput as it comes with cost guarantees. Question 37. A generative AI engineer is building an LLM to generate article summaries in the form of a type of poem, such as a haiku, given the article content. However, the initial output from the LLM does not match the desired tone or style. Which approach will not improve the LLM's response to achieve the desired response? Option A. Provide the LLM with a prompt that explicitly instructs it to generate text in the desired tone and style. Option B. Use a neutralizer to normalize the tone and style of the underlying documents. Option C. Include few short examples in the prompt to the LLM. Option D. Fine-tune the LLM on a dataset of desired tone and style. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is Option B. Use a neutralizer to normalize the tone and style of the underlying documents. Question 38. A generative AI engineer is creating an LLM-powered application that will need access to up-to-date news articles and stock prices. The design requires the use of stock prices which are stored in delta tables and finding the latest relevant news articles by searching the Internet. How should the generative AI engineer architect their LLM system? Option A. Use an LLM to summarize the latest news articles and look up stock tickers from the summaries to find stock prices. Option B. Query the delta table for volatile stock prices and use an LLM to generate a search query to investigate potential causes of the stock volatility. Option C. Download and store news articles and stock price information in a vector store. Use a RAG architecture to retrieve and generate at runtime. Option D. Create an agent with tools for SQL querying of delta tables and web searching. Provide retrieved values to an LLM for generation of response. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is Option D. Create an agent with tools for SQL querying of delta tables and web searching. Provide retrieved values to an LLM for generation of response. Question 39. A generative AI engineer is designing a chatbot for a gaming company that aims to engage users on its platform while its users play online video games. Which metric would help them increase user engagement and retention for their platform? Option A. Randomness. Option B. Diversity of responses. Option C. Lack of relevance. Option D. Repetition of responses. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is Option B. Diversity of responses.